We're only one game in, but Brad Underwood might be right. This could be his best team yet.
You are Locked On Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Locked On Illini. Thank you all so much for making us your first listen each and every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. My name is Verma, your host here at Locked On, where I continue to provide you coverage each and every day. Everything you see and hear is absolutely free. Only thing I ask for in return is, if you don't mind, make sure you hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. I would absolutely appreciate that. Now that both seasons are in full swing, we're going to continue to work aggressively to have this community grow. One way this community is going to be growing is just by watching this basketball team. I was just able to finally finish reviewing the men's basketball game against Jackson State, a second watch, because I'm going to be doing a player grades episode, which I do. Those of you who are my everydayers, you guys know I do this every week for football, which I'm actually going to follow up with in segments 2 and 3 today. But I'm going to be doing it for basketball too. Try to basically rewatch the game, take the fan hat off, and look at it more from an analyst perspective. And so, I'll be honest. I took notes down. I'm ready for that episode, which again, I'll probably work on tomorrow. But I can't help to tell you that at the completion of that second watch, how excited I am. And I'm going to try my best not to do my own Brad Underwood impression. But I really do think that this team might be, quite honestly, could be the best team that Brad Underwood has had yet. And now, the team I think of when I make that statement is the team 2 years ago, when you had Terrence Shannon Jr. and Marcus Damask, and that team that went to the Elite Eight. And I don't know if up and down, in totality, this team is better than that one. But that team had a finish in the Elite Eight, right? Which I'll get to at the end of this segment. This team, I really do think, has the capabilities to go beyond the Elite Eight and maybe into the Final Four, depending on how these brackets fall. And one of the main reasons is just simply how deep this team is. I counted 3 guys on our basketball team that could be the best player on a Sweet 16 team somewhere else. That's talking about Tommy Ivišić, what we've seen of Andre Stojaković. Of course, that depends on how his health is and what we don't actually know what his role is going to be on this team. But then also this potential superstar enigma in David Mirkovic. And, when you have that much talent, I loved last year's team. We all joke around. It's kind of an inside joke now with Illini fans about the incredibly high ceiling that Illini teams have recently. And last year was no different. You had 2 of the most talented players, arguably, that we've ever had. But they were freshmen, and they were counting on freshmen, and we were counting on Tommy Ivišić, who was in his first year in college basketball, and Boswell in his first year in Champaign. This year's team is just different. Now, understand, I know we played Jackson State on Monday, and I'm not saying that's the reason that I'm just completely exaggerating and taking too much of that game into account. It's a 113-55 victory. Okay, that impressive regardless of who you play. But this is me just looking at the individual players as I was grading them out. What I really like about this basketball team, and you tell me if I'm crazy, I don't know if I am, is the balance. You have the youth and you have the veterans on this team. Last year's team didn't have the veterans. They didn't have a second-year Tommy Ivišić. It didn't have, a second-year or more comfortable, let's just say, Ben Hummerkaus. Locked-in Kylan Boswell. This team does. I think the floor on this team is so incredibly high. Now, we talk about the injuries. Of course, the injury issue is always going to be an issue. Hopefully, that gets resolved sooner rather than later. We don't know what's going on with Andrei Stojaković. Brad confirmed that he is practicing, but he's still day-to-day. Hopefully, we'll see if he plays Friday. And then if he plays Friday, I'd assume it's a minutes restriction, and then he's good to go the following week against Texas Tech. But then you also have Mihailo Petrovic and the ominous word of indefinitely. How long is he going to be gone for? But putting those guys to the side just for now, even if you just take a look at yesterday's team and just the combination of everyone, you have such a high floor, I feel like, just between Kylan Boswell, Tomislav Ivišić, and Andrei Stojaković, just using those three as your pillars of a basketball team. All guys who are over 20 years old, who are very experienced when it comes to college basketball at this point. Tommy Ivišić obviously has European experience as well. Those guys are not going to get rattled in any environment that they play in this upcoming college basketball season. So you know the floor is going to be very high on this year. And not to mention, all three guys are just really talented. But what's different about this team and what really has me excited about the potential is the freshman play that we saw on Monday. Now, again, I'm keeping this in check because we all remember Will Riley went off in the first game of the year last year with 30 plus points. And then he really was, how do we phrase it politely, adjusting to the college basketball game until about late December, maybe early January. But Keaton Wagler himself in 26 minutes had 18 points, 6 rebounds. And most importantly, he showed an IQ where he was attacking the rim. He was getting fouls. And Brad Underwood pointed that out. That's a skill that not many freshmen have. That's something you can develop. Terrence Shannon Jr. developed that throughout his college basketball career. But his knack of getting fouls called on the other team is not to be overlooked. And then we get to the guy, David Mirkovic, the guy who all Illini fans are very excited about, the one who's made us completely forget about who the power forward on this year's team was supposed to be. David had, in 24 minutes, 19 points, 14 rebounds, 4 assists. He had a double-double in the first half of the game on Monday. And quite honestly, as I mentioned in the live post game, he could have very easily had a triple-double, or he could have been on a 2020 watch if the opponent that they were playing had any sort of pulse whatsoever. David can absolutely be a superstar in college basketball. Whether it's this year, I'm not sure. But Keaton Wagler himself seems like, again, he may not, the hype train might have been the worst thing for him, but he still looks like a very good basketball player. And when you combine the two, the veteran presence and the youthful potential, I think you combine together, you talk about a team that can do serious damage in March. The flaw on last year's basketball team was they were so reliant on Will Riley and Kasparas Jakushonis. And when those guys had bad games, as Kasparas, let's be honest, routinely had at the end of the season, which drove a lot of Illini fans crazy, well, then you knew the ceiling of that team was all of a sudden very limited. But I don't think that's the case for this year's team. I think right now you can have Kylan, Tommy, and Andrej be the guys that they are, which is, B+ college basketball players. And then when David Mirkovic or, Keaton Wagler, more so David. Keaton, I think, just has a very good role on this team as a very solid rotational role player. And that's fine, guys. That's completely okay. He was 150th ranked composite player coming into this country or coming into the season. Okay, let's ignore the hype train that we all heard about him. It's because it's not important anymore. Because as much hype as there was around Keaton, there wasn't hype around David, unless you're a listener of Locked On, where I told you that this kid could be something special. Now, I mean, not this special. I'm not going to act like I knew he was capable of this. But this team can be led, and their ceiling can be risen by David's play. He has superstar potential freshman of the year. Who knows? By the time he's done, maybe all Big Ten. type of player. But when that inevitable freshman wall hits, just like it hit Kaspersiak last year, just like it hit Will Riley last year, when that freshman wall hits David Mirkovic and Keaton Wagler, the team still has Tomislav Ivišić, Kylan Boswell, Andrei Stojaković, Ben Hummerkaus to continue playing good Illini basketball. And that's what I mean when I say the floor is so incredibly high. I barely mentioned what may be one of my favorite players in the group, the guy I personally have been hyping all offseason long, and that's Mihailo Petrovic. I haven't even brought his name up yet. But again, that just shows you how deep this team potentially can be. And that's why I'm not saying this team itself is as good as the team 2 years ago. But 2 years ago is such a frustrating season because not only did we have to deal with the Terrence Shannon Jr. drama in halfway through the year, but that team by the end of the year, in my opinion, was a top 4 team in the entire country. And it's just unfortunate that the brackets came out the way they did and that the University of Illinois had to play UConn in the Elite Eight because there's no team in the country that would have beaten UConn. And so it's a simple matter of whenever that bracket shook out that you were going to play the Huskies, you were probably going to be eliminated. But you can't convince me otherwise that at that day, on that day, and leading up to that day, Illinois was one of the 4 best teams in the country. And so that's why I talk about this team in a slightly different sense. I don't know top to bottom if they've got the superstar that Terrence Shannon Jr. is. I mean, David's going to be an excellent college basketball player, but not this year. He's not going to be Terrence Shannon Jr., who is, in my opinion, the second best player in all of college basketball. But if for once the brackets break right for Illinois, this team 100%, I just think because of the depth, has the potential to go beyond what that team did 2 years ago. Go beyond the Elite Eight. Make a Final Four run. Am I crazy? Let me know in your questions or concerns in the chat. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who's going to score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting no matter at what point you're watching it. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head on over to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your games with FanDuel, with the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And welcome back. I know we're all excited about basketball season so far, but you know what? And football season is in bye week, but we did just come off a very dominating 35-13 win over Rutgers, and I've already gone ahead and watched that tape, so I wanted to get the player grades episode out. Of course, the coverage of football is not going to stop. It's one of my favorite sports to begin with, and I understand that this football team is worth your attention, and so we are going to be talking football as often as we can on the show. This is a new segment which I've introduced for about a little over a month now. It was because you guys wanted it, feedback essentially. And so this is players' grades. I'm going to go through each position. Let me know in the comment section as I go through them what grade you would provide with them. Quarterback, I'm going to go ahead. Luke Altmaier, if you win Big Ten Player of the Week, I feel like I have to give you an A. And I'm comfortable doing that anyway because I feel like Luke established the tone of this game in that first drive of the game where Illinois was backed up at the 1 yard line. And Luke ultimately went, I believe, 7 of 8 on that first drive and led Illinois to a touchdown, a 99-yard drive for a touchdown. His overall stats felt okay on the passing side, 19 of 31 for 235 yards, but he had 4 touchdowns and he even had 1 rushing. And speaking of rushing, let's not forget that maybe 235 yards passing doesn't look all that impressive, but how about 88 yards rushing? Now, we knew the coaching staff did say that they were going to make more of a point to let Lukey legs, as some like to call him, use his legs, but you really saw just how advantageous it is to have a quarterback that's as mobile as Luke is. So I went ahead and gave an A to Luke Altmaier. When it comes to the running backs, it's hard. You take a look at the box score, and you can't say that you're all that impressed. Khalil Valentine had 12 carries for 37 yards. Aiden Lawfrey had 41 yards. And Caden Fagan had 26 yards on 7 carries. Again, numbers that don't really jump out at you. I mean, if we're being real, Luke Altmaier was your best running back on Saturday. But I don't think at any point the rushing game was not good either. You're right. So ultimately, I give the grade of a B minus. It worked. It did the job that it needed to do. Aiden Lawfrey, in particular, in that opening drive, had, I believe, a 33-yard rush or 33 rushing yards on that first drive, just to again help establish the tone of that game. And so, we're going to talk about the offensive line in a second as well. B minus. Nobody just playmaking showstopper of a performance, but it was just simply good enough, and that's all you needed against the Rutgers depleted defense. The highest grades for both offense and defense for me have to go to the wide receiver room. Congratulations to Hudson Clement, who finally had his breakout game. I'm not saying the fan base or anybody was getting frustrated, but we had just heard so much about Hudson and how great he was at West Virginia. The tape looked really, really good, but finally he had his breakout game. He essentially dominated that second half, and he was complemented with a very good Hank Beatty game, who had 4 catches for 40 yards and also had a touchdown himself. Colin Dixon, 2 catches for 36 yards. This was a secondary you could take advantage of, and that's exactly what they did. Luke Altmaier picked this defense clean, and he got to spread the ball around. But again, I'm so happy for Hudson, because you could see when he scored his first down, and he had 2 of, quite honestly, the best catches you're going to see in college football all season long. And so hopefully this is a sign of things to come. Maybe this is a breakout game that we've all been waiting for, because, I mean, this wide receiver room is already pretty deep, but adding another weapon is just going to continue the positive momentum moving forward. Not just for this year, but maybe even next year. If Hudson all of a sudden does feel a lot more comfortable and establishes himself, then you're going to get more continuity moving forward. And so big shout out to the wide receiver room. Again, the highest grade that I'm going to give today. The tight ends did their job. Not much beyond that, which has kind of been the case for most of the season long. Cole Rusk got injured in that first half, which limited his play. I was really looking forward to seeing his trajectory, constantly going better and better as it has been over the last couple of weeks. But because of that injury, he was limited to, I believe, 9 snaps. But they did their job blocking. That's all their roles were on Saturday. They took care of it. I'm going to give it a nice B minus. They did their job. Nothing was completely outstanding. Tanner Arkin did have a nice grab early in the game, but B minus is what we're going to go with. I will say, though, I was very excited by the all 22s that I watched of this offensive line. Probably its best all-around game, maybe of the season, at the very least, since the USC game. We know the pass blocking has been okay, but the run blocking has been kind of a struggle for this offensive line. But this past Saturday against Rutgers, Illinois ran for a season-high 210 yards. Now, granted, a lot of that was Luke Altmaier, but a lot of that was also still by design. Those weren't broken plays. So those were plays that went the way they were supposed to go. And so I want to give a shout out to this. Hopefully is just a sign of where things are to come. The remaining defenses that we're playing are okay, not great. There's no more Indianas left on the schedule. There's no more Ohio States or even Duke. When you talk about defensive linemen, they had a really talented defensive line themselves. So hopefully this can continue the trend of Illini offensive lines over the last couple of years, where they just kind of struggle out of the gate, make some adjustments halfway through the season, and then they develop some really good cohesion by the end of the year. But I will say, if you have a chance to go back, watch that game. I know some of you are football nerds like myself who also go back and watch the All-22s or rewatch these games. Just take a look at J.C. Davis and Melvin Presley. Just outstanding games. And so they also get a very solid A. And trust me, I love saying that. Right after this, we're going to switch over to the defensive side of the ball. Let me know where you agree or disagree with me on the offense. And welcome back. Switching over to the defensive side, I'm equally as excited to talk about how great the defensive line looked on paper. They held Rutgers to 59 rushing yards on 27 carries, which essentially forced Rutgers quarterback Ethan Kaliakmanis to be in passing situations. And Ethan didn't have a good game himself, but a lot of that had to do with Gabe Yakis breathing down his back. 2 sacks for Yakis, a guy who, a lot of Illini fans, for whatever reason, seem to be getting, frustrated with. Maybe that's the right word for him not showing up much on the box score. But again, I feel like he's played just fine watching these all-22s every single week. I think it's the game plan that's set forth by Aaron Henry and that defense isn't really putting Gabe in a situation to showcase his skills. This guy he has a high ceiling on this football team. I don't think that's doubtful. Certainly the high ceiling to play on Sundays, and I think he can be a very high draft pick. But it was nice to see finally when you just put him in a situation where you let him be him, just how much havoc he can cause on an offense, which is a very good offense. That Rutgers offense is the best passing offense in the entire conference coming into that game. But they had nothing. They had, I believe, 6 points late in the fourth quarter. Sure, they racked up yardage and a late touchdown in the fourth quarter to make their box score seem a little bit nicer. But this was a very dominant performance, and a lot of that had to do with the defensive line, who also gets a very solid A from me. Then we move on to the linebackers, and for me, the linebackers, you had Dylan Rosiak as surprisingly he wasn't playing. He got injured, and so you had James Kreutz playing in his position. But quite honestly, James did a fine job. Admittedly, I was a little nervous when I saw that swap happen, but the linebackers I give a B+ to at this. And then we switch on over to the secondary, another group who had its best game possibly of the year. You talk about, I just referenced that Rutgers offense, or the passing offense, which was the best in the Big Ten Conference. They were held to 253 passing yards. And again, I think like 100 of it was late in the fourth quarter when that game was already well in hand. You just had everybody really step up. I mean, it was the entire defense. They all played very complimentary football. The defensive line started it all, but the linebackers were just as physical and really were all up on that Rutgers offense. And then you had the secondary, which has continued to confuse Ethan all day long with disguised coverages, and Matthew Bailey kind of playing more of a rover scout type of role. It was just a fantastic performance all around. And that was kind of my point. We'll wrap it up with the special teams. Unfortunately, David Alano, while he did hit all his extra points, he missed his lone field goal attempt. So sad. That was one of the shortfalls of the game. But the punting unit did what they needed to do. And I just have to say that this was clearly the most well-rounded game that we've had in a very long time. When you talk about both how the offense looked, how the defense looked, this team showed that, again, it's a good football team. We don't know if it's a very good football team. It's certainly not an elite team. That's safe to say. But when everybody plays to their potential, now I know Rutgers is 1-4, I believe 1-5 now in the Big Ten Conference, and I'm not heeding too much into that. But when these guys click, there is at least some comfort to know that Illinois is an above-average Big Ten team, and a team that's still capable of getting to 9 wins this year, maybe 10 wins, if depending on the bowl matchup, and see how that goes. And as I said on a previous episode, 9 wins for this team, 10 wins for this team is such a monumental challenge that you have to be proud of it. And that's why I feel like I keep lecturing this group about, we need to continue to support this football team. You know what? Let me take a second, because watching the TV telecast, I was very nervous about what the attendance of this team would look like of that game. And at kickoff, I thought my nervousness was vindicated. That student section, I believe, was at like 25%. But maybe 5 minutes into the first quarter, one of the first TV breaks, when they showed the crowd, that crowd looked like they were about 75 to 80% full. And that shocked me. And again, I want to give all the credit to you guys. If you were in Champaign to watch that game, you got a show and you got to see the best all-around performance from this football team. And I'm hoping that we continue to pack Geese Memorial Stadium because this team deserves it. You know, this is your chance to watch the best quarterback that Illinois football has ever had, at least that I can recall. I wasn't really around during the Jeff George era, or at least I was too young and certainly not paying attention at the time. But Luke Altmaier's a special quarterback. He's a special player, and he's very loyal. And if nothing else, you know, he deserves those stands to be as full as possible and you cheering them on because the last 3 games are all winnable. And we may have a bye week this week. That doesn't mean we're going to stop the coverage this week, but we may have a bye week this week. But you know, this team is going to be ready for Maryland and then Wisconsin and Northwestern to round out the year. And hopefully we'll get another New Year's Day Bowl, whether it's in Las Vegas, whether it's in Florida again, wherever it might be. This team deserves it. And if they continue playing the way that they did on Saturday against Rutgers, I think this could very well be a top 20 team by the end of the season. Speaking of another team that I'm very excited about, the women's basketball team is actually about to tip off right before I start recording this. So I'm not going to be able to review the game on this particular episode, but I will talk about it on tomorrow's episode. Just want to wish good luck to Shauna Green and that really young and exciting basketball team. I hope you all do get a chance to support them as well. For the big games, if there's enough interest, I really do want to go live to talk about that team because it's a program that's on a rocket ship trajectory right now, especially with women's basketball becoming so popular. They've announced that certain parts of the stadium are already sold out, which is the first time ever. I hope you guys continue to show them the positive support that we know you're going to show up for the men's basketball team, and you've been showing recently for this football team. Also, before I let you go, again, please make sure you're in the Talk Illini Discord. We had about 70 of you live talking. I don't know what the word is for Discord during the game, and there's no other place to be. If you're not in Champaign, there's no other place to be than the Talk Illini Discord. The link should be in the description. Thank you for making Locked On Illini your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On Big Ten. Craig Shimon breaks down the most exciting conference in college sports, from the rivalries to the championship and every game in between. Find Locked On Big Ten on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Just a reminder, I will be going live immediately Friday after the game as well against the Florida Coastal, and then we have Texas Tech next week, and then we have Colgate next week, and then we have football again. Just remember, nonstop coverage right here at Locked On Illini. Because of you guys, we're already the second biggest Illini-based channel in all of YouTube, and that credit goes all to you guys. And it's not easy talking to Illini sports, in particular in the summer, each and every day, where I'm trying to figure out what stories I can talk about for 25 to 30 minutes, but you guys make it easy. The fact that you guys show up each and every day makes it easy for me to want to come here and show up each and every day. So a round of applause to you guys. And again, a lot more football tomorrow. I'll do basketball player grades. I'm really excited about that. You watch that first segment, you'll know exactly why. And we'll have more football content for you. Just make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Until next time, ILL. Love you guys.